God, you guys just sort yourselves out. And I had to jump down off the stage and dance with someone. And for me, that was a moment where I had to decide of which flavor of Smartie I wanted. And in that moment of panic, it was very interesting. I jumped down and danced with a bald middle-aged white guy. And I think that told me something, that my dance teaching had become my personal safe space. And the guy who looked most like me was the person I was going to feel most comfortable with. We had such a laugh. I had such a laugh. And I would like, anyone to be able to come and dance. I understand if people want to, again, Stephanie Lipton and Salsa Fusion started Salsa Rosada back in the, it was going when I was in the demonstration team. The Salsa Rosada thing, and there's always the the lovely lady, I met her not so long ago, who does the alternate Wednesday on the boat next to Temple. She does I think it's a lesbian and gay salsa night.
Gloria,
that's the one.
Because I used to go to her parties.
And you think, okay, that's fine if that's all one, but don't we also want to see which is friendly? I've danced with trans dancers. It doesn't matter if they want to be a follower, then be a follower. If they want to leave me, leave me. It's. I also now salsa teachers, and I've employed salsa teachers who won't allow women to lead in the class, won't allow men to follow, and have a very, very leaders are men, followers are women, and anyone else, out you go. And I think if that's where the scene was.
You disagree with this?
Oh, totally. I wouldn't. I'd stop the class and kick him out of the club.
Interesting.
I mean, I wouldn't have in the 90s, and I didn't. And I probably would have been ambivalent about it in the noughties. But it's 2020. I mean, we've had 20 years of this decade, millennium. We've got to catch up. I'm not saying we've got to be an absolutely politically correct activist, but we can be a little way behind that curve and treat people with respect. Why shouldn't they dance? Why shouldn't they be as happy as we are when we dance?
So let me answer this question then. I agree with you. And I'm almost, well, I'm not contradicting myself. Yes, it is 2021. So all the women, I have to think then, is it 2020? So all the women, because this is the question I asked, who are using their sex appeal, and quite provocative photos, is there an issue with that really? Because, if we are in this 2021, what's wrong with it?
The old-fashioned version of me would say, yes, there is an issue because they're not sending them to me. Thank you for not condemning that with the sexist comment that it was.
No.
But I don't have a criticism of any individual for the choices they've made to survive and get by and thrive in this world. But I've made my choices, and some were right and some were wrong. But I think as an older member of society, we have to say, how do we want society to be? And have the sense of duty, of leadership to actually step up and say, no, these are the values, learn from our mistakes. And I would love a scene where a young lady, using just her as an example, can wear whatever makeup she wants and whatever clothes she wants, and not wear whatever makeup, where women don't have to straighten their hair to fit in with their college students, where they don't have to code switch to fit in with the conversation. and I accept that I am behind the curve. You know, I also experience the resistance to change because I felt, let's say the pronoun thing, where, you know, I'm a he, it, or something like that, and people put pronouns on there.
Yeah.
And I haven't honestly followed that, and I know I should. And if someone
I haven't followed it either, actually. I need to get into it and understand it a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, but it's interesting because that debate is moving, and because I haven't been involved, I feel left behind. And sooner or later, what is normal and comfortable for me now will feel awkward and not sure, and then eventually will become uncomfortable and unacceptable.
Yeah.
It's like when I'm 80 or 90, someone's going to turn around and say, "Oh my God, you can't just call yourself Mr. Sadler." You know, that's dangerous. You know, you're and things change. The language change. You think of the phrases that, you know, I just would not contemplate using now. It just wouldn't cross my mind to, but they were commonplace. And I think we need to celebrate that change and just be brave enough to go a little bit with it, try it on, keep pushing. In salsa, in our lives, in every aspect of it.
Okay, thank you for that. So let me ask you, pre-COVID, was Street Beat Salsa doing well?
Yes, Street Beat Salsa was doing well.
There was a pause there.
There was, and the pause comes from it's a good job. My personal aspirations for salsa rapido was that it became a bigger business, if you like, a swing patrol or a Ciroc.
Okay.
All of those combined and bigger still by load. And you know, it hasn't done that. And so I took, I changed the product and developed something that is more saleable, and that's the Mambalsa product.
I was going to ask you about that. I was getting ready. So tell us about it.
Well, it was a deliberate, constructed project. It was done with awareness at every stage, and it stalled. And I'm going back to it. And the reason it stalled is because I found the training for the psychotherapy was just consuming too much. So, you know, we're 6 years in. See, that's the old me. That's the old me going, we're. Who's the we? I'm self-employed. It's just me. It's me, my wife, and 2 cats. That's the we in Street Beat International. You can probably see our office building in the background, you know. I'm in a spare bedroom. I mean, let's be honest about it. And the whole story, right, here we go. Mambalsa story, recording it for posterity. Oh, thank you. There we go. Moment of pause. So, my wife,
hello,
also known as Water Carrier, she is a lovely violinist, and there's a friend of ours called Fabian Velez, and he's Colombian and lives in Bedfordshire, I think now.
Okay.
And he learnt classic boleros, literally sitting on his grandmother's knee. And so these things were kind of, these songs, this music was wrapped around his heart. And they got together with Fabian's girlfriend, now his wife, and a lovely, talented actress friend of ours. And they put a show which threaded together these lovely classic boleros, which he sang at the violin and a couple of other musicians. And we did a concert, they did a concert, and I was just videoing it at the Venezuelan embassy, and there's a lovely theatre underneath it. And boom, it was full, and it was one of those. Many people remember the first time they saw the Buena Vista Social Club documentary, And I remember seeing it in Islington and coming out the theatre with tears in my eyes. I'd never seen a documentary on the big screen. I never knew it could move me. That live concert that they did moved me.
Okay.
And I also realised I can't dance bolero. I'm a dance teacher. I've been teaching dance for, I don't know, 15 something years by then, and I couldn't dance bolero. And even if I did dance bolero, there was no one to dance with. No one else danced bolero. What were we going to do? At the same time, I was getting back together with trying to get back together with a couple of mates of mine, and we were in a band at school. And and I was kind of revisiting the music of my youth, both the stuff we played and the good stuff that was in the charts. And I also remember having the revelation of, like, I couldn't dance to that stuff either. I did not want to go back to dance disco, you know, the English two-step, shuffling around. I didn't want to smooch away to, you know, Nights in White Satin again. And that was, you know, that was one lifetime of trauma away. So the idea popped into my head. I've been teaching dance over 20 years. Why don't I create a dance that can meet those needs? Now, the obvious place to look is Ciroc, but the modern jives, generally, and there's notable exception, they don't work for slow music.
No.
And the reason they don't work for slow music is because they don't have the synchronization of body movements, which fires up the mirror neurons, which gives you a little dopamine burst and gives you happy brain juice when you dance in a synchronized way. So that's why we have a footwork pattern that connects us to the music and connects us to our partners. And that's what I mean by synchronization.
Okay.
So we needed a footwork pattern, and I constructed a footwork pattern that meets lots of different needs and criteria and is flexible. And I thought, what would be interesting is if someone had said to us something which probably never happens, and I'm going to put myself out on a limb here and test you. How often do you dance salsa to non-salsa music?
Not very often, and it's normally only if I'm desperate to dance salsa, as in.
Good answer. I'll dance to anything. I'll dance to anything as long as it.
Personally, I don't really like it myself, but it was actually at my friend's birthday party during lockdown. I haven't been anywhere to dance, and we were celebrating her birthday, and you had to only dance by your tables. And I heard something in the music that I thought kind of had a bit of a salsa, and it's just because I hadn't danced for about 8-9 months. Yes, anyway, that's my smart answer.
It was good enough. And I know I've asked that question over the years to many dancers, and the answers are always pretty much the same. You know, if needs be, you know, that's all you've got.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it, and it's pure psychology. We make the association of salsa movement, salsa expression with salsa music, and it feels wrong and awkward and weird to dance salsa to any other music. But, and you could ask the same question of tango dancers. You know, they don't dance tango to any old music. You dance tango to tango, salsa to salsa. And this is the history, of course, because different regions have developed different music. But what happens if you're empowered to dance a dance to any music? And as part of the dance is the exploration of how those movements connect, fit, and mold to the genre that you're dancing.
Okay.
So Mambalsa is kind of like a platform, a framework. It has synchronized footwork, so you can dance it fast, dance it slow, and feel the brain juice. It has a leading and following system identical to the one I teach in salsa, but it's a non-choreography based system. So we're not just doing set piece chunks of movement. You're finding connection to the music and interpreting it. And it enables us to dance to any 4/4 and most 2/4 genres of music. So on the second workshop that I ran of Mambalsa, we danced to 14 different genres of music.
Wow. Okay.
And a massive penny dropped when we were one track was the Maria by the Gotan Project, which is kind of like a modern tango. And the answer to that was, oh, this feels a bit tango-y. This is kind of strange. And then the next track was some country western, I think it was Dolly Parton. And we're doing exactly the same footwork, exactly the same move, and it felt completely different. The dance had molded itself to the rhythm, and they both felt good, providing we allowed ourselves to notice them. And that really put some fire in my belly, because I thought, okay, I've never been to Louisiana. I've never danced Zydeco music from the swamps of Louisiana, but there are people there who do. And I could go over to Louisiana, teach them Mambalsa, and we could enjoy their culture.
Interesting. Okay.
Through. So I took a show up to the Edinburgh Fringe, my quest to one man's quest to create a new partner dance. And as part of the pre-Fringe publicity, I did a workshop for, I think it was about 150 of the Edinburgh Tango Society.
Oh.
I was terrified. Lots of ladies with straight black hair, present company. But you know the type, oh my God.
Yeah.
Tango dancers can be scary, and we got and we just had such a laugh. Now I don't think they're dancing Mambalsa now, but it worked. It really worked. So the ethos of Mambalsa is you dance it to any music. It's incredibly fast to learn. The idea is you take away this huge inhibition that you have to be an amazing level before you can show anyone else and publish it. You just go, okay, if you can do the basic footwork and a couple of moves, good enough. Put it out there, share it, get that sense that you can do it. Lower that barrier between beginner and intermediate. So it's like, learn it, do it, show it.
Okay.
And the other big thing about Mambalsa, and you've got a lot of this in the interview so far, is at the heart of it is an ethos, a value system, and it's based on respect, and it's based on empathy, and it's based on positivity and well-being. And along with the workshops that I ran initially and the show in Edinburgh Fringe, I set up a daytime dance class, which very small group, and there were ladies recovering from breast cancer, there were elderly men, there was a room full of people. It's a small group, but it was a bunch of people who would never, ever, ever show up to my one-day intensive course.
Okay.
Because salsa starts there. And I think in the 90s it started there, and now you have to.
Yeah. That's a good observation. That's true.
95% of the UK don't dance. 95% of the people in the
Seriously?
UK. Yeah, that was a study that I saw online. It was a proper piece of research. And I am pretty certain that hasn't changed over the last 30 years that we've had, 30 plus years that we've had salsa in the UK. It just simply hasn't changed. So as a dance industry, are we that successful? We barely scratched the surface. And that's not knocking what we've done. I think we've achieved something really quite significant. But there's another leap. There's another jump to do. And I don't think it's going to be with jives and the dances that look back in time. You and I like rock and roll music, but there's connotations of the 1950s I just don't want to be connected to now.
Yeah.
I thought we'd have some agreement on that. What about a dance to look forwards? What about the newest partner dance on the planet, Mambalsa?
Mambalsa, is that how you pronounce it? Mambalsa.
It's a contraction of mambo and salsa. Mambalsa.
Yeah. Okay.
And
cool.
It's a made-up word because it makes it easy to trademark it. And my project is now, the year before last, I did a whole load of filming for it with a wonderful dancer who's now in New York, but I never got around to editing it. And so top of the list of things that didn't get done during lockdown was editing all these times. What I really need is to be able to take about 16 months off with no work distractions to do that. pie in the sky. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
As I learn more about the communication skills that talking therapy gives me, and as we've all suddenly learned internet skills that were not possible before, well, they were possible, they weren't happening. Now they're part of our reality.
Yeah.
To offer Manbalta and to anyone who wants to teach it, wherever they are, and learning with a sort of blended learning approach is very possible. The idea of people coming to a beginner salsa class as an absolute beginner, I think, will recede, because people are going to learn a bit online to take away their anxiety.
Wow. That's interesting.
Earlier today, I published a bunch of video clips on YouTube as part of these sort of Salsa Rapido playlist things, so sort of 1 minute series. And it was basically 3 things to do before you start. And one is to get some presence, to kind of notice. If you come into a class agitated and angry, that's no way to start. You've just got to get
It's so true. It's so true.
It's true for teachers as much as students.
Yeah.
And the second thing is posture. I'm a great fan of Amy Cuddy. She got a bit of a bad press. She did a famous TED talk about power posing, that posture affects your emotion. Her research was then totally disrespected, and a large part of the disrespect within the psychology community in the States was that she got so famous from the TED talk that they reckoned she was being a bit uppity.
Wow.
And that's not acceptable as a woman to do that.
No.
She's since, and I love saying this because it's going to be recorded, she has since published further research, and it proves her point that your posture does affect your emotional state. I'm
going to look for her. Okay, I'm going to look for her, most definitely.
A fabulous TED talk. And if we all do it as dancers, we've got to get that. And you go, why do we have that? And so when people are dancing with me and they're all kind of like, oh no, what's going on here? And they're expressing their nervousness. It's, if we have confidence in there, then you have the posture that goes with it. You don't have to teach confidence. You don't have to teach posture. You just teach the confidence that generates the posture, then it's genuine. For some person it might be like this, but that's who they are. That's fine. So that there's no, I'm not really one for going, do it exactly like this. I've seen online debates about whether the light bulb change should be clockwise or anti-clockwise.
I haven't seen that.
Oh God, and it's just ridiculous. If it feels the right thing to do at that time, do it. Do it, because that's expression, and that's where we get the brain chemistry that makes it work. Within the structure of the dance, with the synchronized movement, it's going to feel perfectly right anyway. And that expression is going to be rewarded and reflected back by the person you're dancing with, and it's going to be awesome. And it is. Let me ask you a question. I like asking questions. Toe curling dances. Dances that have been unbelievable from start to finish. Just out of this world dances. Your career, which is as long as mine, not quite as long, you're much younger. Sexist old git, I can say that.
That's fine.
How many have you had?
Toe curling to me normally, toe curling as in positive or negative?
Oh, positive. Sorry, not. Yeah.
Gosh.
Hundreds, 10 or less than 5?
Probably 10.
Yeah. And that feels totally right, because you have been out there dancing with top dancers throughout your career.
But interestingly enough, it wouldn't be because of that. It's normally been with somebody who's been older, actually. I've always said that it's been wonderful for me to dance with a man who's been 60, 70.
Well, can I just really reflect back and reiterate, and perhaps you might want to use it for a trailer for the whole show, is that Dancing with Older Men is good. I would say in my career, probably about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And I haven't been as consistent on the club scene
Yeah.
as I should have been. And I didn't realize until COVID. God, I want to go dancing.
I know.
But they call that state of mind flow. And it is where the risk and challenge are in perfect synchronization.
Okay.
Your prefrontal cortex shuts down, and you just get into this extreme presence. It's what athletes call in the zone, comedians call it in the box. Abraham Maslow referred to it as peak state. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, famous psychologist in the States, another TED Talk to watch, he coined the term flow and his peak state, and he measured it and has got it. And that is the why we dance freestyle. Choreography does not. It gives a whole bunch of thrills. The whole ride of the emotion of the crowd and the risk, of course, is there. But at the end of the day, a choreography can only go wrong. It can't go extra right. And by the time you've done the right move, your mindset is probably well and truly, you're sort of, it's similar. But when you're dancing freestyle and the action and reaction loop is so quick that you just get more and more doses of happy brain juice. And so you can end up, now usually something comes in that blocks it, an inhibition, an error, and usually those errors are a lack of presence in some way, shape or form. But when I've had one of those toe curling dances, it keeps me coming back for another decade.
Wow.
And I get flashes of it here and now. I remember dancing with Amaryllis, the lead dancer of Havana Rakatan, and we were at the second time they came around, and it was interesting because she is so tall and so gorgeous, and there's all these English salsa teachers in the room, and we were all so chicken we would not dance with her. And I plucked up the courage after a couple of glasses of wine, and I had the most absolutely gorgeous. And you just go, well, I remember that. That's why I'm here, and that's what I do. You get flashes of it all the time, just little moments where it worked. I think the best way of describing it is anyone's played ping pong and you get a rally going. You're supposed to be with that person, but once you get that rally going and it goes on, and you just feel this energy and excitement.
It's true. I like
that's
that.
What we do about. We play ping pong.
I like that. Let me ask you. COVID, I do think I think it's been such an interesting time for many reasons. Black Lives Matter, thinking more about the environment, the Trump era, the Boris era, so many, Palestine now. There's just so many things going on, and I know it really awakened me, and I would probably say particularly George Floyd. This is how this whole show started, that no matter what people's opinions have been of me, I never really spoke enough. People had this kind of thing about me, but I don't believe I was ever vocal enough. I stayed away from so many subjects, whether it was racism, sexism. It wasn't that I didn't have a view, but I didn't, I wasn't social media savvy. I wasn't interested, many things. But what I do think about COVID and all the things that have happened is I've started to become more vocal, as I felt I had to, even for myself. And it's been quite liberating. What I actually said about COVID is when I had conversations with girlfriends is I hoped that it was a time for resets with the environment. You know, we all know through staying at home, the ozone, all of this is a lot better. Also about the salsa scene, I really hoped it was going to rebalance the power, how many different venues. I mean, you know, one thing that I kind of think is there's too many salsa clubs and parties and classes, and you know, it's hard. Whether it's politics, dance, what is your opinion of everything since we've had COVID? What's your opinion? Do you have any wishes, hopes, or kind of opinions? Sorry, that's a lot there.
Just a touch. First, a couple of quick questions to fire back. You kind of, maybe this is me putting my therapy hat on, I hope not, but you mentioned this view of you on the salsa scene. Could you flesh that out for me? What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, it's come out in a few interviews that, you know, a lot of people found me intimidating, etc., etc. And for me, I've heard that for a long time. But even though people think or thought that I was intimidating, I never really said anything. And this is the first time I'm talking about within my interviews. And before how the show started was me sharing my true stories as a Black woman in salsa and some experiences outside of salsa. So I never really shared my opinions until now. So that's what I mean by that.
Do you feel there's a pressure to conform to the strong Black woman stereotype? Or people are seeing you in that light? Are they pigeonholing you as this strong, powerful, scary?
Yeah, I would say that I've been pigeonholed to that, but also I didn't know how to act because I was considered intimidating. But regardless of them thinking that, me, myself, I didn't know myself. So, you know, it's many things in one.
And you found that quite discombobulating to realize that people see you in a way that you don't see yourself.
Yeah, I suppose my perception of myself is probably that I'm real, I'm normal, I'm down to earth, and hearing that people found me intimidating, or a lot of people use the word scary, I find that quite upsetting. But what I've learned through the time is, it's interesting, that's how in general Black women are perceived. You know, it wasn't just in salsa, but that's where I suppose I had, you know, apart from going to work to a 9 to 5 job, yeah, I suppose that's where, yeah, it's, you know, it's been, and, you know, thank you for allowing me to talk. Thank you for asking me questions. I've played with it myself. I've played with myself of how can I come across as being less threatening, as in I changed my dance style. I started doing much less shines. I went through phases of doing less body movement, so many different things so that I would be acceptable or not so threatening. And it's, you know, it's interesting. Whereas I probably would say many other people, you know, even the term that I was such a strong dancer, I saw myself as lacking. I saw myself as not being good enough. So it's interesting. But anyway, less about me.
I think so much of what you said, in many ways, I could apply that to me. That sense of not being good enough. Not only did I not consider myself to ever aspire to becoming a dance teacher, my value system from my parents. I think they might have had difficulties with me becoming a dance teacher.
Yeah.
And knowing my parents, I mean, my father died 20 years ago, but my mum still around. They probably didn't. They probably wouldn't have the slightest problem at all. But I put that voice to my thoughts about them. I'm putting that voice in their head because that's my insecurity speaking. And I can understand the generational trauma. The technical term, but the story of Black people in London and Black people in the States, and how the stereotype of this formidable, powerful Black woman can come about. I think it's something to be proud of, but I think it is only a shell. And I think one of the best questions I ever ask clients the psychotherapy clients when I see them is, how do you differ from your own stereotype?
That's a nice one.
It doesn't matter what I think of you. I've got clunky old stereotypes. But you have an internal stereotype of how you see yourself, or how other people see you, I should say. And then there's that real you behind the mask. And it sounds like you're going, hang on, I'm not just this.
Yeah, and for sure, because, you know, I always say to people, I can look after myself. I'm not intimidated by many things, but just because you can look after yourself doesn't mean that you are just that stereotype.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen Peaky Blinders, so we've all had to amend our from the Midlands.
Yeah.
I found out, talking of stereotypes, I found out only a couple of years ago that, you know, my mum's family is from very, very, what would have been poor parts of Wimbledon, Southwood, you know, not the posh bit on the hill with the tennis club. And I found out that I was, my grandmother on my mother's side was quite possibly half what's now called traveller community.
Fascinating.
What my family would call gypsy. And, you know, I've come to terms with that. That's new information. That says I'm not quite who I thought I was. And it's very interesting how these, you know, how that story came about and how it wasn't passed on until this point in my life. And I think that there's a process as we get older and wiser of reconciling the outer shell with the inner self. It's interesting you say that about the formidable, you know, I'm using my term, not yours, formidable Black woman stereotype, because that's really not my impression of you. We've had very few conversations over the years. But we, you know, messaged a few times last week. We had a telephone conversation. I listened to that interview with Mario B, and, you know, I think you should listen to it again, because that isn't a woman who's putting on a front. That isn't a woman who's dominating and powerful and resistant and insecure. That's a woman who's in touch with her emotions, and in the public of people can actually cry. And I remember he's talking, and I can hear your sobs in the background. I only heard it from audio. And anyone who can do that, they're not a monster. I mean, basically, their strong, Black, powerful woman is saying, "You're a monster. You're scary," and you're not. You know, and I think I like the idea that Shine's diminished now post-COVID. I'm just steering things back a little bit, because Shine is basically all anyone has been able to do in a dance situation for the vast majority of them. I'd like to publicly state, my response to COVID was to curl up into a little ball and hide. I had bouts of depression. I had many projects. They didn't get done. I hung on to a couple of things which were really important to me, like the counseling training and stuff like that. And I just hunkered down and didn't come out of that shell.
Why? Why?
Stuff going on, stuff coming up. Just prior to COVID, I had a diagnosis, and it's kind of bizarre because I found out that I only had one kidney, and as the first lockdown was coming, the stories were starting to happen about blood thickening and potentially COVID problems. So, but that was a bit of a shock to just find out. So, everyone's got two kidneys, I've got one.
So you just found out that you only had one kidney?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so then that made you, sorry to interrupt you. So then that put you into being in the vulnerable category, is what you actually say.
I felt I was more in the vulnerable category because of it. The other side of it was also 4 days before I started volunteering at the cancer support charity. I was diagnosed with a pre-malignant condition myself.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, and that is a roller coaster. Anyone who's been through that knows a roller coaster of emotion. So that was February last year. The course that I was on had ended, and there was you always get that feeling at the end of a thing when you've got a group of people.
Yeah.
For all sorts of other reasons. So that had stopped, and then suddenly I'm entering this new health condition, and then COVID came along, and it's just like I didn't have the whatever to go forward. So I sort of stopped. And the reason I was saying that was to take the opportunity to praise those people on the South Sea, Mo and Renee, lovely dancer. She did body movement stuff. Yourself, of course, and all the people who sort of kept the torch going in some way, shape, or form. They did their best, and a lot of those online classes fizzled and faded, and that's okay. That was it was a human response to COVID across a population. That everyone goes, oh no, we've got to learn online now, and then it dwindles away afterwards. But
you know what, Alistair, I've got to say this in my opinion. From my knowledge and experience, well, no, I'm not going to use the word experience. From my knowledge and from what I know, I think everyone has lost it at some stage during the last year and a half. So whether you commend me or not, I can definitely say that I've had my struggles. I know that a lot of other people had as well, and it's okay as well. But what I would like to ask you is, I'm sorry that you had depression, and obviously, you had those diagnoses. When do you think you came out of your depression and you were, ready to get the ball going again?
Last Friday.
Seriously?
Yeah, several things happened and came together all at the same time. The first week of the final year of the course started last weekend, and on Friday night, I made the first sale on the booking system for a gift voucher for the date switching system. I was not comfortable selling dates that were probably going to be cancelled or delayed once again. My customers have been unbelievable. You know, there's people who booked a year ago last February who are still on a waiting list, you know, for courses to come through. They're amazing, and they've been okay with it. It's fantastic. So Street Beat is back in business, and that a massive part of my life has come back. I've processed and got used to the medical side of things. That's fine, you know. And like all these things that you can either use them as a way to sort of beat yourself up or put yourself down, or you can turn it around and go, okay, well, how am I going to get more out of what I do? And so now the Mambalsa project is back on my radar big time.
Okay, I'm trying to understand something.
It'll either work or it won't, but you know,
it'll
either work or it won't. So I think sometimes it's external factors that get people through it, and sometimes it's internal shifts that make it through it. But you know, somehow, some way, you do get through it, and you just got to hang in there until you come out the other side.
I'm trying to understand one thing with what you're saying, and I don't understand it. Putting aside your illness, your prognosis that you had, do you think you curled up and had depression as well because you're used to being so busy?
Yeah, a huge sense of loss of self. I defined myself. It took so many years to get to the point where I put my picture on a flyer, and it was my intensive courses and the Salsa Rapido videos, which are just me talking to camera. That was my external thing. That was my projection into the world. And suddenly, bang, that's gone. That's gone. And now hopefully it's coming back again. And once you cross that bridge of fear, be it a cancer diagnosis, and to be honest, I don't have an illness because there are no symptoms, and I don't have cancer. It's a pre-malignant condition.
Yes, I get that.
And I have to say that because I counsel people who've been through stuff at the Nightingale. So
still doesn't mean that it's not scary, but yeah.
Oh no, you know, I can look them in the eye and go, I understand that fear. Just a tiny grain of it I've been through. And of course, the scary thing is 50% of us will go through that same fear. Because we're now up to 50% of the population will develop some form of, will experience cancer in their life.
Gosh.
And that almost certainly means that 100% of us will have someone close to us who does. So yeah, we need to sort of have these conversations. But in terms of depression, so many people have hung in there. I'm lucky. I am so privileged. I've got a 3-bedroom house. I've got a garden. I've got cats. I've got a mortgage that is far less than most people pay a monthly rent, and I've got savings that would cover me through, that have sent me through. Across the road from us is a block of flats, and there's 1-parent families, there's elderly people, there's all sorts of stuff, and they don't have a garden, and they don't have the resources, and they don't have the privilege, and they don't necessarily have the skill set that enables them to get a job post-pandemic. They can't all work at Tesco Metro. You know, it's horrendous. And I think that's a really interesting point, because from a depression point of view, or anxiety and that, the counselling industry, from what I understand of it, is expecting a massive wave of problems. It's already elevated, but it's as we unlock, as we come out of lockdown, that people get a sense of being left behind. People get, that abandonment when society is going, and the news items are all about nightclubs opening again and whoopie-doo, and there's a big thing, and aeroplanes are flying in the sky, and they're not.
What underlying health conditions does that bring? What vulnerabilities does that press the button off? And what damage has a year and a half of isolation brought to people? And I feel really, really strongly, and this is kind of, you know, if you'll forgive me to use it as a sort of platform, we need to be vaccinated. The risk is minuscule compared to the damage not being vaccinated can do to other people. If we have an empathetic bone in our body, if we look at that elderly person and say, that could be my mother or grandmother, if we look at that 20-something pregnant woman and go, she's not allowed to have a vaccine, what fears does that bring out for her and her baby? You know, it's a duty, and duty has been a word that's been absent from it. I don't know the person I haven't spread COVID to. I don't need to know, because I trust that this society will look after each other. And I think it's relevant also to the whole Black Lives Matter and the whole debate and statues and all that kind of stuff. Is there's nearly always two sides to it, and I don't want to be on one side or another, but it is that very privilege that we all enjoy, and we enjoy it because we're a country that can afford the NHS. We enjoy it because we have so many trained doctors and nurses and you know, ambulance workers and policemen who, all that kind of stuff that is often seen as the establishment. That's coming from that wealth and that privilege. And so we need to change, and we need to change carefully, and maybe not as fast as the activists would like, but maybe not as slow as the ones who are stuck in the mud, as it were. So I think it's kind of interesting that you know, it's as much a war about stereotypes, and we see it playing out in salsa, as anywhere else. Back in the 90s, there was an article thing about how British salsa teachers had stolen Latino culture, was the phrase they used. And the person who published the most compelling response to that was Nelson Batista. And he's a lot of things, but he's no lefty. He's no liberal. He's no liberal. We just got to come together, and that's really uncomfortable. I remember the tsunami event. Oh my God! Talk about petty politics going on. We were just like a bunch of kids. Oh God, yeah. There's so much, you know, from microphone hogging right the way down to you know, basically petty bitchiness amongst professionals. But we got it there, and we raised a sizable chunk of money for the tsunami appeal, which was as it should be. And if we can go through that, why can't we take salsa forward in the way that we want it to, if there is consensus? And if there's not, Mambalsa. Yay!
I would love to see a video. I'd love to see a video. Let me ask you this, because you know what?
Why don't we have a dance sometime?
Yes. I am actually planning something. I'll tell you about that another time. So it sounds good to me. Let me ask you this. You know what? I think I'm blessed because I've been around so long, and also I've got a very good memory. So for me, it was really important for you to be interviewed, because I know your company, I know you, I've seen you around for a long time, and I know a lot of your legacy. As I said, I know you, but I don't. What I want to ask you is, and I am asking most people about this, do you feel that you have received enough recognition?
The clever answer is, I don't think salsa has received enough recognition.
Okay.
I think it is nowhere near as problematic a scene as other nightclub events are. So salsa hasn't received enough recognition. I fully accept that with the scene the way it is, which has local jobbing salsa teachers at the bottom, and then the better ones, and then at the top of the list you get this Congress circuit.
Circuit.
And then there's a few weird and wonderfuls, and I'm in a weird and wonderful thing. I don't do local classes in church halls and gyms and bars and stuff like that. I do my intensive courses and the beginners and improvers level, and I pass those dancers on to a scene.
Yeah, I've met many of your students who have told me that they learned from you. So
we'll just tell them no refunds.
Yeah.
I hear the horror stories coming back when things go wrong. I very seldom experience it myself. I did have the opportunity a couple of years back. I was doing some shows at the Edinburgh Fringe, and I went to a lovely little salsa club in Leith, which is kind of on the edge of Edinburgh. And I thought, hey, no one's going to know me. No one's going to know me. And it's my chance to experience a salsa club as everyone else does, as an unknown walking through that door. Puff myself up. Off we go. Pay the money. Got through the door. Paid the money. And then you get that silence. That kind of like, that's it. That's your welcome over and done with. You are now just a stranger in a room. Congratulations. That's your £6 worth. What do you then do? It was horrible. And I had the experience to draw upon. And I watched the dance floor, and I saw who could dance and who couldn't, and who was getting dances and who wasn't. And I started with someone who was not getting dances, who should have been. She was a larger lady, put it that way. She was a lovely dancer, absolutely lovely dancer. And then I danced, and I worked my way up to the room until I was dancing with the people who taught the classes there.
Okay.
And it took me back to when I was teaching in Granada in Spain, and we went to a local salsa club there, and I saw the good dancers, and my attitude then, and we're talking about like 15 years earlier, was, okay, move aside, here comes Alistair. And I was there, and one of the Spanish guys who taught there, let it be known, he was calling me El Phantom. And I thought, yes, the ghost, that's brilliant. I like it. I didn't realize that there was an edge to this. It kind of means this sort of showy kind of, it's not a good thing to do. And I was behaving like a complete prick.
Okay.
I was going into someone else's club and showing off. It was arrogant, and it was needy, and it was inappropriate behavior. And so, you know, in Leith, it was the opportunity to sort of, you know, just be gentle and make sure, and respect that there is a hierarchy there. You know, those teachers, just because they're teaching in a tiny little, I don't know if it's a separate town or a suburb of Edinburgh, it doesn't mean anything. You know, they could be the world champions or could be that. But more importantly, they could be wonderful teachers doing amazing things for those people who dance with them. They could be the one night out of the week for that person because of their circumstances. That they could be the healing process after a bereavement or something worse, if that's worse. And I think that's what the grassroots salsa people do. We do good stuff without really realizing it. We get people touching. Humans are built to touch. It's our psychology. If we don't touch, we go crazy.